My name is Howard Wilson Carver. I am a senior accountant at Taft, Coleridge and Woolwich, the oldest accounting firm in Boston. I am 50 years old and have reached the peak of my career with this firm. I specialize in business tax management and am considered an internal expert in this area. I make $85,000 a year plus benefits. I am in very good health for my age as I exercise regularly and eat a reasonable diet. Oh yeah, I'm also the only black middle manager in our company. It's fashionable to say African American these days, but in reality I'm black, Negro, colored, non-white, and so on and so forth. What makes me a little special is that I am married to a white woman. Edith Delaney Carver and I have been married for 26 years, due in May. But I'm not sure we'll see the 27th anniversary. Edith is usually called an impresario. She produces and books theater productions and concerts for major venues in Boston. She is very successful and has remained so for several years. She is 48 years old, and she is also very slim and fit. In fact, she is one of the most attractive women on the Boston social scene. She is very photogenic. Her photograph often appears on the pages of local newspapers dedicated to social life and entertainment. Edith and I discovered early in our marriage that we would not have children. There was nothing wrong with me, but Edith had some kind of disorder that prevented her from getting pregnant. She took this news calmly, but I was very upset. I wanted children, and Edith said she wanted two. We discussed adoption, but for various reasons the timing wasn't right. Over the years, this has become less and less relevant to us. When we first got married, I was the only breadwinner in the family. My modest salary provided us with a small apartment in Needham. It was difficult for us in the beginning, but over time, my promotions and salary increases took the immediate pressure off, and we began to think about the future. When we found out we couldn't have children, Edith, whom I began to call Eddie, decided to get a job. I couldn't blame her. Sitting at home all day, doing household chores and waiting for me seemed like a pointless task for someone as smart as her. I encouraged her to find something she liked since we weren't dependent on her salary. Happiness smiled on us, and she found a job at a booking agency. The agency provided musicians, comedians, actors, dancers, or any other specialists for clubs, advertising agencies, theaters, television studios, and radio stations. It was a modest business, but Eddie took to it like a duck to water. Within 2 years, she had increased bookings by a third, and the unremarkable agency suddenly became a factor in the Boston entertainment market. Naturally, her employer, Asser Hirschfeld, was delighted with her work. She not only increased their business, but also penetrated the inner circles of the publicity world. She was a very visible figure, and thanks to this, she was noticed by both performers and potential clients. By the age of 35, Eddie was already a recognized personality on the local entertainment scene. At that moment, her income exceeded mine. That's when things changed in our marriage. Eddie gained enormous self-confidence and became the dominant personality in our union. It was she who decided who we would invite to visit. She chose the restaurants where we would be seen, and she also decided that we needed a more fashionable address. Anything less than a Back Bay address wouldn't do. This stretched our finances to the limit, but Eddie insisted. Luckily, her income continued to grow along with her success, and we were eventually able to afford the payments on the spacious, renovated townhouse she had chosen. I know it sounds like I've become a doormat, a man who simply let his wife control his life. But it happened so gradually that I did not immediately realize it. By the time I understood my role in our marriage, it was established and seemed unshakable. They say success breeds success, and in Eddie's case, this was absolutely true. She stayed at Acer's firm just long enough to build up her clientele, and then, without discussing with anyone, she started her own business. This was presented to me, just as it was to Acer, as a fait accompli. At the age of 37, she created her own agency and stole almost all the valuable clients she captured for Asser Hirschfeld. I couldn't complain, I guess. By that time, Eddie's income greatly exceeded mine, and most of what we had in property and capital was earned by her. I was a lesser figure. Oh, we were still close. Our personal relationship was fine. We made love regularly, and she enjoyed my presence when we were alone. It was this very presence that hid what was happening between us. Was I happy? For the most part, yes. Eddie was in her element, and her success was shared with me. I went to work every day without anything to worry about. I knew my job thoroughly. In fact, I was starting to get bored and didn't see any changes on the horizon. I continued off the beaten path and stayed at TC and W. I could never blame my employer for the stress in my life. As Eddie continued to take off, I noticed that I saw her less and less. She constantly attended some kind of opening, charity event, or gala evening. I was often invited, but I found that it was more of a courtesy on Eddie's part. We both knew that her world was foreign to me. I accompanied her when the presence of a partner was required, but more often than not she was busy communicating, making contacts, and taking photographs with one or another celebrity. I was the fifth wheel. As we turned 40, Eddie continued to rise on the Boston social scene. Her business had momentum and her income was astounding. I remember 3 years ago, we met with our tax accountant, and she reported $500,000 in income. I almost fell out of my chair when I heard this. I had no idea. Eddie didn't seem to know either. I don't think she really knew how much money she made. Almost all of it went into the money market at Fannie Mae. The rest was in her personal account. I think this meeting had a greater impact on us than I realized. Our marriage has become something more hybrid than a conventional union. We made love, or at least sex, once or twice a week. We were happy with each other when we were alone. But in public, Eddie seemed to prefer to keep her distance from me. Was she ashamed of me? Because she was the dominant, successful partner, and I was the humble accountant? Or because I'm black and she's white? I'm not prone to paranoia, but observing her behavior at public events, I began to wonder. And one more thing. Our only friends were my friends. I learned early on not to invite them to our house parties when Eddie invited her friends. My friends were ignored, and I felt bad for them. I told Eddie about this more than once, but she brushed off my fears, considering them to be fiction. So that brings us to today, to my beautiful, successful, fit, energetic wife and me, with our unusual but seemingly a workable marriage. I won't embarrass myself by describing myself as handsome, but I'm not ugly either. I have a full head of gray hair, weigh only a few pounds more than I did at 20, and thanks to Eddie's generosity, am exceptionally well dressed. Our sex life is still active, and we regularly declare our love for each other. I've had no reason to worry, until now. Howard, I want to talk to you, Eddie said as we finished putting the dishes in the dishwasher. Yes? About what? This is awkward. Let's go to the living room and sit down, she suggested, clearly feeling uncomfortable. It was unusual. I went to the sofa and sat down. Eddie chose a single chair opposite me. I don't quite know how to start, she stammered. You know I love you. We have always been kindred spirits. I would never want to hurt you. I sat, now motionless. Something was going to happen, and I was sure I wasn't going to like it. I began to consciously hold my breath. I feel the need to do something too. Improve my life, she continued, still very uncertain. I feel like I'm missing something, and I was looking for it. I mustered all my willpower not to interrupt. I had no idea what my face looked like, but I could feel the pressure building. I was thinking about a lover, she finally said. She looked at me without looking away. She was waiting for my reaction. My mind was spinning out of control. I did my best to keep my balance. I continued to remain silent. I'll make her tell me everything. Howard, you have to understand. This has nothing to do with my love for you or anything to do with you as a lover. You've been wonderful all these years. It's just something that's eating at me. You know I would never cheat on you. I couldn't. I just couldn't. That's why I wanted to talk to you about this. Tonight, she finished, wringing her hands. I exhaled. A long, slow, suppressed whistling sound as I tried to collect my thoughts. I continued to remain silent. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know how to react, yet I was waiting. I saw the disappointment on her face. I didn't behave the way she expected. I was blessed with a very deep, powerful voice. An oddity of genetics, I guess. Several people have told me that my voice sounds a lot like James Earl Jones. More than one woman has told me that they can feel my voice. Nice vibes, I'm told. I was flattered. I also knew how to use my voice to my advantage. Eddie rarely heard me do this. Finally, I spoke. "No," I said quietly but firmly. "What do you mean?" she asked, raising her eyebrows in surprise. "I said no," I repeated, still quiet and reserved. "Howard, you can't just say no. This is important to me," she said plaintively. "Edith," I said in a calm but firm tone, "I will not tolerate infidelity. I've been faithful to you since we met. When we made those vows in church, I knew I would live by them for the rest of my life. I expect the same from you." "But Howard," she tried again, pleadingly. "No," I said loudly. "Don't even try to continue this conversation. You know exactly where I stand. I won't change my mind." "End of discussion," I said decisively, with a hint of anger. I stood up and looked at her with contempt mixed with disappointment before leaving for my office. I closed the door behind me. I plopped down in my leather chair and threw my head back. I was desperately trying to come to my senses. I tried to process what this meant for our marriage. It was not good at best. In the worst-case scenario, divorce. I stood up, opened my personal closet, and took out a cognac glass and a bottle. It's been a few weeks since I felt the need for a stiff drink, but this was certainly an occasion. I took deep breaths, trying to stabilize myself again. I tried to remember if there was anything that could have told me about this, but of course I couldn't remember anything at the moment. My mind was too cluttered with thoughts of the present to remember anything important, let alone any subtlety that I might have missed. All I could do was review the basics. She wanted to have a lover. No matter what she said, she wanted to cuckold me, and she wanted to do it with my permission. It will not happen. But this raised a question. Had she already cheated and now wanted my consent to something that had already been established? I did not know. How could I know? And what exactly was this desire? Was it a better man, variety, or the need to feel young again? Or was this preparation for something else? If yes, then why? I found myself in a unique situation. If there had been a divorce, I would have benefited. Her income greatly exceeded mine, and I would be the offended party. There would probably be significant alimony payments from her to me. It didn't make sense. Why should she risk it? And her reputation? What would dirty breeding and ugly rumors do to her reputation? It didn't make sense. With each sip of brandy, I began to relax. Strangely, I wasn't as upset by her attempted betrayal as I expected. Why? Did I expect this? Don't think. We moved away and I didn't notice? Or is it due to my low status compared to her fame? Did I interfere with her thoughts? I couldn't answer these questions. Gradually, I began to feel a growing resentment. She treated me with contempt. She assumed that I would agree with her proposal, or at least be willing to discuss it rationally. I doubt she expected my unconditional refusal. In retrospect, it was the right decision. No. Sitting in my chair, I began to plan my response beyond an outright refusal. It's not over. I was sure. She'll be planning another try, or at least a diversion. I wanted to be ready. Eddie shook my trust in her. It was almost as if she had already cheated, and I would have discovered it. What to do? My first instinct was to hire a private investigator to find out what she was doing. Unfortunately, I didn't have any clues to point him in the right direction. Perhaps I was getting ahead of myself. First, I needed to do an internal investigation. If there was one thing I could count on, it was that Eddie would be away a few nights this week, and I would have the house to myself for a few hours. This will give me the opportunity to look for clues to her plan. In the meantime, I needed a strategy to throw her off balance. It was pretty easy. I'll move my things to the guest bedroom. She will sleep alone for now. This should excite her. It was still early, not quite 9 o'clock. I left my office and went to the closet in the hall to get a windbreaker. Eddie was nowhere to be seen. I walked out the front door and went for a walk. I needed to clear my head. But more than that, I wanted to be out of the house. My anger was now mixed with sadness. The more I thought about it, the more I wondered if this could be the beginning of the end of our marriage. A marriage that I considered strong and fulfilling. I didn't want this, but I wasn't really paying attention to where I was going, but I eventually realized that I was many blocks away from our townhouse. I calmed down to the point where I could think about my circumstances and plan my actions. I wasn't sure of my behavior while Eddie and I were together. I had options. Ignore her with a silent treatment. Behave as normally as possible in this situation, constantly showing anger, maybe even leave temporarily. I was thinking about what might be the best strategy. The more I thought about it, the more convinced I was that I wanted to know more. I wanted Eddie to open up and tell me what she was thinking. I wanted to know as much as possible about her expectations of me. I was confident that this was the best way to get to the bottom of this episode. I didn't want to just accept the status quo. I won't let her use me. I will never become her cuckold of my own free will. Edith, I made a terrible mistake. I don't know what made me think I could convince Howard to accept my desire to have a lover. But even so, I never expected him to just shut me up. There was no compromise in his tone. This was said with such force that it took me by surprise. I'm not used to failure. I rarely encounter them, and this came as a shock. I was sure that Howard would understand how important this was to me and would not deny me my need. He never denied me what I really wanted. Why did he react so dramatically this time? I need to rethink my situation. I love Howard. I know I love you. But I need some excitement in life. I'm almost 50 and I need it. I need someone who can make me feel alive and wanted. God knows Howard is a great lover. He fills me completely and is so attentive to me. I couldn't have asked for a more attentive husband. But I need more. I really ruined everything. I warned him of my intentions. I foolishly made him doubt me. Now I won't be able to afford an affair if he keeps a close eye on me. Why did I have to warn him? What a fool I was. I just made it even more difficult. I've already made my decision. I'm going to do that. I just had a bad start. Wrong strategy. I need to step back and reconsider what to do next. While wandering around the house, I noticed that the door to his office was open, but he wasn't there. I checked the living room and kitchen, but he was nowhere to be found. I looked in the hallway closet and noticed that his windbreaker was missing. He left. Where did he go? Will he be back tonight? I felt fear in my stomach. It was turning into a nightmare. I poured myself a strong gin and tonic and continued walking around the house. Howard didn't have a cell phone, so it was impossible to call him. Would he answer if he could? I need to find a way out of this mess. I have to make him forget about my stupid prank. Rebuilding trust will be a long and difficult process, but it is necessary. I looked at my watch for the 100th time. It was 10:30 p.m. and he still wasn't there. It was dark and I didn't know where he was. We didn't have a car, so he either walked or called a taxi. I couldn't remember him ever just leaving like that without saying a word. He could have been robbed or something else. I walked into his office and saw a brandy glass on his desk. It was almost empty, with a small amount of amber liquid at the bottom. He poured himself at least one drink before leaving. I took another sip of my drink, noticing that it was almost gone. I didn't handle this situation well. To tell the truth, I was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. It was already after 11 when I heard the front door open. I hurried into the living room to make sure it was him. He avoided my eyes as he took off his jacket and hung it up. "Howard, where have you been?" I was so worried. "I went for a walk." "I needed time to think," he answered simply. He didn't sound angry or upset. "Sorry, Howard. I did not want to make you sad. I would never hurt you, you know that. I don't know what made me think that I could. I couldn't continue. Nothing I could say would make it right or bring it back. I desperately needed Howard to talk to me. Please give me something I can answer. I'll move my things to the guest room. I'll sleep there for now," he announced. "No, no, Howard, please. Please do not leave me. Talk to me, please." I knew I was begging, but I had to. He turned to me and his eyes were cold, his expression calm. "I'm not in the mood to share a bed with you, and I'm not ready to talk right now. We will discuss our future tomorrow, at the earliest." He said it so decisively in his deep, resonant voice, leaving no room for argument. I felt so helpless. I had released this dog into the wild, and now had to find a way to get him back into his crate. "Talk to me, Howard. Please don't ignore me. I said I'd talk to you when I'm ready, not before." For the first time, I saw anger on his face. "I've gone too far. You'll have to be patient until he's ready." There was nothing more I could do. I slowly walked upstairs to our bedroom. I'll be alone tonight, and I doubt I'll be able to sleep. I don't know when I finally fell asleep, but when I woke up, I felt sluggish and tired. Finally, I forced myself to get out of bed and put on my robe, heading to the kitchen. As I walked past the guest room, I noticed the door was open and the bed was made. When I got to the kitchen, Howard was nowhere to be found. He has already left for work. His breakfast plate sat in the sink, and his coffee maker sat quietly with one cup missing. I picked up the mug and poured the first cup of coffee of what I expected to be several throughout the day. I checked my office messages and then left a message with the secretary that I wouldn't be coming in after lunch. I remembered that I had a discovery in the evening. It was the last thing I wanted to do, especially if Howard was willing to talk. However, I had to be there, and I had to apologize to Howard. I realized that I would be apologizing a lot in the coming weeks and months. "Howard, I got up early to avoid Edith this morning. I wanted to take the day off to think about my next move. I noticed that Edith had an event planned that evening, which made me happy. This will give me time to prepare. This will delay the need to talk to her for another day and give you the opportunity to start looking for evidence of infidelity. I could only hope that, as usual, only a major disaster could keep her from attending the planned event. Perhaps it was my long walk last night, or perhaps because I was starting to map out my future, but I slept well. I woke up refreshed and, to my surprise, confident. I had a rough plan of action and a sense of direction. Yes, I will no longer be Howard Carver, the compliant husband, and, as some might think, a eunuch. I intend to correct this role. I think Edith will be in for a big surprise when she finds out that she now has a different husband. Will no longer be a weakling. I will use my voice to be clearly understood. I will dominate from now on. It will become part of my new identity. I was busy all day, asking the secretary not to pass on outside calls to me unless they were urgent. As I expected, a little before 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Edith called and left a message that she would be attending the opening of the theater season and would not be coming to dinner. She apologized and promised that we could talk tomorrow. I left work earlier than usual and arrived home an hour earlier. As usual, I had to cook myself dinner from what I found in the refrigerator and pantry. I chose soup and a sandwich with a glass of red wine. Simple, quick, and easy to clean up afterwards. I wanted to start my search. I started with Edith's computer. She was not an expert in using it, and I knew from previous experience that she kept her calendar and email in Outlook as I was surprised to find that she had protected access to the operating system with a password. I didn't know she could do this, but still some form of protection was established. I wonder why. I've tried several obvious passwords without success. I knew she only had a basic understanding of computers and suspected that any password would be simple or easy to remember. After I stopped trying to guess the obvious options, I sat down and thought. Looking at the screen, I noticed that the monitor was sitting on a table mat. I lifted the front edge of the mat and found a small piece of paper with 4 8-digit alphanumeric codes on it. I tried the last one, and the computer willingly let me in. I opened her mailbox and found nothing in my inbox. She created several folders, all of which seemed related to her business. I began to systematically look through each one to see if I could find anything interesting. It was a tedious task, but I continued. Finally, I opened the folder labeled Ginny and found a series of letters addressed to someone named Ginny. I started reading them because it was completely different in content than the other folders. It almost looked like a diary. She was sharing her experiences, opinions, and hopes with what I assumed was another woman. As I read, I was surprised at how outspoken she was in these messages. She talked about her life, about me, and about her social and business contacts. I read 5 letters at the beginning before pausing. I thought about their contents. She was expressing a longing for some stimulation in her life. She professed to love me, but hoped that something exciting would happen to rock her world. That something wasn't defined until last night when she revealed exactly what she meant. I continued to read Ginny's letters. It was almost like listening to someone in therapy. Unasked questions were answered as if the therapist were with her at that moment. When I checked the folder in more detail, I noticed that there were no incoming messages, only outgoing messages from Edith to Ginny. Did she delete her inbox? I checked my deleted messages folder, but didn't find anything. I wasn't getting any useful information other than her sharing her innermost feelings with someone other than me. I systematically read through the messages in the folder for over an hour until I came across one that stopped me in my tracks. It was labeled Family, and I couldn't believe what I was reading. In it, Edith admitted that she deliberately avoided pregnancy at the beginning of our marriage. She didn't want children. She arranged it so that I thought she had physical problems, when all this time she was using contraception. After her career was established, she underwent a tubal ligation to avoid any accidents. Her reasoning was simple. She didn't want to raise children and didn't want them to interfere with her social life. After she returned to work, it became an obsession for her. She barely acknowledged my disappointment. Was she afraid or reluctant to raise mixed-race children? I wonder if that was a factor. She hid her betrayal well. I never knew this until this very moment. I was furious. This was a long-standing betrayal. This could be the act that would ruin our marriage. We talked about children before the wedding and even at the beginning. We even joked about what they might look like. We joked about half and half. Now there was nothing funny about it. As I thought about her actions, I began to remember my thoughts from the previous night. I had to admit that I knew Edith was selfish. She did what satisfied or entertained her, paying attention only to her needs, including mine. Because I gave in so easily, she was rarely denied anything. Now I realized the extent of my error in judgment. While I was lenient, Edith was indisputable. She saw no reason to change her self-centered lifestyle. This had to change. Coping with the new me will be a big shock for Edith. It will be interesting to see how she handles this, if she can. At this stage, I didn't care. She plotted to deprive me of my family, and for this, I will not forgive her. Now all that remained was to determine whether she was already unfaithful. I continued to look through the folder, but found no more shocking revelations. Whoever this Ginny was, she had a complete understanding of our personal lives. Edith talked about our sex life. She was completely satisfied with her and my performance. There was no hint that I did not treat her with love and respect. This made her statement last night even more incomprehensible. I quickly checked the remaining folders in her mail and didn't find anything interesting. It was all business related. I closed it and logged out, turning off the computer. I sat back in my chair and wondered what was next. Looking at my watch, I saw that it was already past 10 and decided that that was enough for today. 10 minutes later, I was in bed in the guest room and fell asleep almost immediately. I didn't hear Edith come home. I woke up early again, but my sleep was restless. I would fall asleep, then wake up from some vivid dream that I couldn't remember. I would fall back to sleep, then wake up, my mind racing, trying to cope with the thoughts that were overwhelming it. Just like the day before, I left for work before Edith got up. Usually we had contact during the day, but yesterday was such a day. We will both be at home today, and I expected that we would have a conversation in the evening. I was becoming better prepared every hour, and now all that remained was to determine what exactly I would tell her. I knew for sure that I would take the lead and lead the conversation. Her days of controlling the agenda were over. Edith. Another night without sleep. I was exhausted when I got home from the theater season opening last night. I should have been sleeping soundly, but the confusion in my head was preventing me from doing so. 2 nights without sleep won't help me deal with what's about to happen. Maybe I can take a nap during the day before Howard gets home. I wasn't very effective at the opening yesterday. I couldn't concentrate. I met all the people I planned to meet, but I couldn't have meaningful conversations. Maybe resting before talking to Howard will help calm my mind. This morning, as I lay in bed, I was thinking about what I should do. I have to convince Howard that I've given up on the idea of having a lover. I have to make him believe that I belong to him completely, and that my request last night was nothing more than the ravings of a menopausal woman. Of course, he could believe it. I stopped taking hormone replacement therapy after warnings about health risks. Maybe I can blame it for that. I told Ginny about my encounter with Howard. She reproached me for being so careless. She knew about my desire to have a lover. She doesn't approve of this. She warned me that Howard would never accept it. She doesn't understand why I want to cheat on him. She sees him as an ideal husband. Of course she's right. He is perfect. Too perfect. Why am I so eager to destroy myself? Why do I think I can have my wonderful husband and another man on the side? I don't understand myself. It's not like I didn't have experience with other men before meeting Howard. I know the difference. I know how much better Howard is compared to other men. What is pushing me to this edge? Maybe I really am crazy. Maybe I really need psychiatric help. Maybe it really has something to do with menopause. Too many questions. There's too much confusion. I will not solve these issues by lying in bed. It's time to get up and take a shower. Something to eat. Think about what I want to say tonight. Be ready. Don't let Howard take over again. I lasted all day. After lunch, I lay down and slept for almost 2 hours. I felt better, but I felt nervousness underneath the surface. I wasn't calm at all. This will make talking to my husband this evening even more difficult if I can't get my emotions under control and calm down. By 5:30, I decided to make myself a strong gin and tonic to calm my nerves. Howard came home at his usual time, a little before 6. I was waiting for him in the kitchen. I prepared one of his favorite dishes. I wanted him to be in the best mood possible. I was still restless, despite the drink. I'll make another drink when Howard gets his usual glass of wine. I heard his steps in the corridor. Hello, Howard. I'm sure I sounded as insecure as I felt. Edith. He used my full name. He hasn't called me Eddie since we spoke. At least he acknowledged my presence. Dinner will be ready in a few minutes. Why don't you freshen up and have a glass of wine while you wait? There was nothing unusual in my proposal. He nodded and went upstairs to the bedroom. I made myself another strong gin and tonic while I waited for him to return. He returned a few minutes later and poured himself a regular glass of Cabernet. How was your day? He asked. Okay. Nothing unusual. Fine. I wasn't confident in myself, and I'm sure he noticed it. He nodded. The silence that followed was very uncomfortable. I wanted to break it. Say something. At least make a sound. I'm sorry I didn't see you yesterday, I finally said. I know you wanted to talk. We'll talk after dinner, he said calmly. Calmly, he was calm. There were no signs of discomfort or nervousness. Unlike me, I was sure he sensed my nervousness. I set about preparing the table and cutlery. I needed to do something with my hands. I checked the oven at least twice, trying to get the timer to go faster. Seconds felt like minutes, and minutes felt like hours. Finally, the bell rang, and I almost jumped to the oven door. We ate in almost silence. I made a few comments about yesterday's discovery, and Howard nodded politely. He said something about meeting with a vice president next week, but I didn't catch what he was talking about. I couldn't concentrate. His apparent calm drove me crazy. How could he be so calm when I was so confused? Finally, our dinner was finished, and we cleared the table and put the dishes in the dishwasher. It only took a couple of minutes to wash and dry the items that didn't fit in the machine, and we were done. As always, Howard was helpful. When everything was done, I waited for Howard to say something. I knew he would understand that I would let him do the talking. I just wanted it to end. Let's go to the living room, he finally said. I'll pour myself some brandy before we talk. Do you want anything? Yeah, I think I'll have another gin and tonic, I said, and quickly went to get a glass and bottles. He disappeared into his office for a minute and returned with a glass and sat down where he had sat 2 nights ago. I returned from the kitchen and sat down on the chair opposite, as before. It was all starting, and I was anxious about what would happen in the next few minutes. Howard. I forced myself to remain calm and collected. I saw how my behavior disturbed Edith's peace, and I wanted to maintain this advantage. I continued to call her by her full name. No kind words today. Edith, I want you to listen carefully to what I say. It won't be a two-way conversation. I'll say what I want to say, and you'll listen. If you can't, then there's no point in discussing anything. I'll give you a chance to speak, but not today. Do you understand me? Her eyes widened. This again was not what she expected. She nodded in understanding. Well then, let me first address the implications of your confession on Monday night. The first and most important thing is my deep disappointment in your disrespect for me. I saw her head shoot up, and she was about to say something when I raised my hand. She stopped, exhaling at the same time. I don't know how I could give you reason to think that I would calmly accept it if you made me a cuckold. If you think that my years of giving in to your whims have turned me into a weak-willed weakling, you are sadly mistaken. I want to repeat what I said then. I will not tolerate any infidelity on your part. If you choose to ignore my warning, I will file for divorce, and I can tell you with certainty that there will be no reconciliation. Do you understand me? I spoke very decisively, using all the power of my voice to emphasize my determination. Yes, I understand, but I raised my hand again to remind her of my intention to express my thoughts rather than accept her words. You have greatly damaged our relationship. You have undermined the foundation of our marriage and cast doubt on your fidelity. You destroyed the one thing that good marriages are based on, trust. You brought doubt into my mind, a doubt I've never had before. I'm not sure our marriage can handle this. I saw her take a sharp breath, and her eyes widened. I hit her hard. I sowed the seeds of uncertainty in her mind too. Uncertainty about her future with me. I had time to think about what I would do now that you created this situation. You claimed to love me, and until this Monday, I had every reason to believe you. Now, I'm not sure. She stood up in her chair again, as if she was going to say something, to challenge my doubts. This time I just looked at her silently, and she sat back down without saying anything. You say that you would never hurt me, but at the same time you are ready to humiliate me by giving yourself to another man. I can't imagine how you could think that this wouldn't hurt me. I wonder if you even know me after all these years. You've definitely made me question whether I know you. I blame myself for not being more assertive in our marriage. I allowed your success and your social contacts to diminish my role. Looking back, this was a mistake. I am not now and will never be your doormat. I am your equal in this marriage and will not accept anything less. I have come to understand, Edith, that you are selfish. You think of yourself first, to the exclusion of everyone else, including me. Are the people you hang out with really your friends? Can you count on them when you really need their help? I want you to remember our true friends, Edith. Where are they? Do you ever think about them? I know the answer, of course. I keep in touch with most of them. I'm always happy to see you in their homes. Have you ever wondered why we don't invite them over anymore? Because you don't need them anymore. I gave her time to absorb the blow before continuing. I saw the confusion and pain on her face as I continued my merciless attack. If our marriage is to continue, and I mean if, there needs to be a change in your attitude. I will start attending your social events again, and you will treat me as your husband and not as an addition. If you can't do that, then there's no point in continuing our marriage. This time she didn't answer. I wondered if I had gone overboard with the demands. If so, then so be it. We'll start inviting our real friends into our home again, and you'll treat them like friends. You need to reconnect with these people. They were with us long before you began to shine in the light of your success. Have you ever wondered where I was when you were at your galls and dinners? More often than not, I spent very pleasant hours with these people. And here's something else for you to think about. It didn't take long before they stopped asking about you. I understand that you have another social event planned tomorrow evening. I won't accompany you since I have my own event. However, if we decide to continue as a couple, I will be available in the future. In the meantime, I want you to think about everything I said tonight. I don't want to hear answers or excuses today. I want you to give my full attention to my next questions, and we will discuss them on Friday evening. Firstly, do you want to continue this marriage? If so, will you give up your intention to have a relationship with another man? If not, say so. I will contact my lawyer and instruct him to begin divorce proceedings immediately. This is not discussed. Secondly, I want you to understand that my role in this house will change radically. I think you can guess that I will no longer be a simple, compliant husband. And finally, you will learn to be honest with me. You weren't in the past, and I want to know why. We will have many frank discussions about ourselves and what it will take to restore my trust in you. This will be unpleasant in some cases. Again, it's up to you. If you can't be honest with me, then we have no reason to continue our marriage. I sat back in my chair, feeling mentally and physically exhausted. It was like hand-to-hand combat, but I was sure that Edith received many more blows than me. I'll go for a walk to calm down and clear my thoughts. Do not wait for me. For now, I'll sleep in the guest room. Maybe after Friday, we can discuss other options. Am I giving you enough time to answer? I asked quietly, trying to reduce the intensity of the meeting. Yes, I think that's enough, if something happens. Her voice faded. She was exhausted too, beaten morally and mentally. I was very hard on her, as I intended. I wanted her to feel the pain that I felt, and I wanted her to understand the changes that awaited her. My goal was not to be soft, just polite. Edith. I was dumbfounded. I completely underestimated Howard. He presented an ultimatum, and I had no opportunity to respond. He didn't allow it. I've never seen him like this before. Never. He challenged me to defend my actions and choose between his demands and divorce. There is no middle ground. I don't see any possibility of compromise. I heard the door close as he went out for a walk. I got up and went to the kitchen, making myself another gin and tonic. It was unusual for me to drink so much, but tonight was an exception. I needed to calm down and understand what was happening to me. I have lost all the power I once had. Howard took her from me as if I had no power to stop him. And his questions. Of course, I wanted to stay married to him. I had no choice but to assure him that I would not be unfaithful. He erased it from my mind in a few minutes. I had choices to make. They seemed simple now, but I had 2 days to think about them. What did he mean by being honest with me? I've always been honest with him. This whole mess happened because I wanted to be honest with him. How could he doubt it? But there was something else. He never said he loved me. Never mentioned his feelings towards me other than anger and disappointment. Did I kill what we had together? I don't know if I can handle this. I love him. I know I love you. I wounded him, and like any wounded animal, he fights. But will he fight for us? I felt nauseous. I put my drink down, knowing it wouldn't help. 2 days. 2 days to find a way to salvage nearly 30 years of Howard's love and knowledge. Almost 27 years of marriage. There must be a way to make him love me again. But how? I was exhausted again. Lack of sleep, stress, and this blow. I couldn't think clearly. Go to bed, Edith. Call Ginny and arrange to meet her. Maybe she will have some ideas. God knows I don't have any. And then go to bed. Howard. The air was warm, and there was still light in the sky when I left our house. I felt a fresh breeze from the river as I headed towards the square. Now I was breathing more calmly. The worst was over, I thought. I said everything I wanted to say. I held back everything I didn't want to say. I dangled hope in front of her, but left little room for negotiation. There was nothing pleasant or sublime about what I had just done. I hit her with words as if I were using my fists. I saw the effect of my blows. After a while, she just absorbed them while I struck. There was no sign of struggle on her part. I should have felt better. I should have felt relief, perhaps even elation. But I didn't feel it. I did what I thought was necessary to shock my wife into thinking about us, about our marriage, about our relationship, about our future. I left her no choice. On Friday, I'll probably find out if we have a future. I thought about who I am and what I want. Do I want to continue this marriage? Do I love Eddie? I deliberately avoided telling her that I loved her. I myself was not sure, and therefore it was better not to mislead her if I lost this love. How do I know? I once read that the test of love is to imagine your life without a partner. Divorce, death, no matter what the reason. How would I live further? Can I overcome her deception many years ago and forgive her? I didn't think so at first. But now I'm not so sure. She couldn't take it back. She couldn't fix it at this late hour. Can I live with this? She must admit her sin before I can make a decision. She must admit that she has caused me another deep wound. And what about this act that I performed? New, dominant Howard Carver. It was a performance. I knew it. Can I support it? I doubted it. Perhaps in a less aggressive and defiant form. Into someone I could truly become without self-loathing. I knew I could never go back to the softer, weaker person I was before. Eddie will never respect me if I do this and will most likely look for another man again. What does it take to create the excitement she craves? Nothing has changed since yesterday. I still need to find out more about her. I was still expecting secrets. Where are they hidden? What do I know about my wife? Did she cheat on me? Do I want to know? I wonder if she knows how much she has damaged my faith in her. It was now dark, and I turned back towards our house. I calmed down after the previous conflict. So many questions and so few answers. The confusion remains. I haven't decided anything tonight. I challenged Eddie to decide our future. It dawned on me that I was leaving my fate in her hands. Irony. I've gained control, but Eddie will decide. How ironic. Edith. I finally got a good night's sleep. It's surprising why, when there is so much confusion and chaos in my head. I crawled out of bed and headed to the bathroom. The shower brought me into a clearer state. Last night, I called Ginny before I went to bed. She agreed to meet me for lunch at our favorite little bistro. Thank God for Ginny. I was greeted at the door by Nick, the head waiter. "Mrs. Martin is expecting you, Mrs. Carver." He led me to the far corner to a table that we knew was more private and quiet. "Thank you, Nick. Hello, Ginny. Thank you for coming." I was truly glad to see her. I desperately needed her advice. "You know I won't say no to meeting you, Eddie," she smiled. Ginny was so reliable, so down to earth. We have been friends for many years, more than 10. Howard was wrong. I have a real friend. Virginia Martin is the best friend I've ever had. I can trust her with all my secrets. All. I talked to Howard last night, or rather, he talked and I listened. He didn't want me to say anything. He said he would give me a chance on Friday. Oh, Ginny, he was so cold, so cruel. I've never seen him like this. He's a completely different person. I don't know him at all. "Tell me everything," Ginny said calmly. I told her everything I could remember. She told me about his last 3 demands. By the time I finished, I was almost in tears. Ginny reached out and patted my hands. "Calm down, Eddie. Calm down. Let's talk about tomorrow evening," she said. She was so calm and collected. "What are you going to tell him?" I'm going to tell him I love him. I will tell him that I don't want a divorce and will never betray him. I will say that it was just a nightmare and that I don't know what made me think that I could hurt him like that." "What else?" "Oh, he said he wants to be with me when I go to these events. I don't know why exactly. He said he wants to be seen as an equal. He used to hate my parties. I do not know what to think. I'll do it, of course. I just don't know what he's expecting." "And what else?" "I'm glad he's become more decisive. I want him to be my partner in everything. I'll tell him I welcome him becoming more assertive towards me." "Anything else?" I don't know what to say to him about his comment about honesty. In the end, I told him that I thought before I did anything. Isn't this a sign of honesty? I don't know what he means. Don't you know? Think about it, Eddie. Isn't there something you're most afraid to tell him? Ginny looked at me with the most penetrating eyes. I didn't understand what she meant until... Yet, oh my God, I can't tell him this. This will kill him. This will immediately end our marriage. I'll never be able to tell him that. I went into panic mode. What if he already knows? Can't be. You're the only one who knows. You wouldn't tell him. How could he know? I don't know. But it's a dangerous game you're playing. He didn't just bring this up. He has something on his mind. From your description of last night, it was very specific and well prepared. There must be a reason for him to make it one of the big three. Maybe he thinks I'm already having an affair. Maybe. Can you take the risk? I don't think I can tell him that. It will destroy us. Then I will have nothing left. You really ruined this, didn't you, girl? There was no hint of humor in Ginny's eyes. I nodded. She was right. It was entirely my fault. What should I do? I can't lose him. I just cannot. Ginny sat back for a few moments, sipping her coffee and thinking. Well, remember that this advice is free, and you know what they say about advice that's worth what they pay for it. Again, there was not a hint of a smile. If I were in your shoes, I would tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I wouldn't hide anything. You can't go wrong if you do this. Secondly, I would seek professional help to try to understand why you decided you wanted an affair. I had the experience of communicating with a psychiatrist when Nels left me. They don't have all the answers, but they definitely make you think about all the questions. Thirdly, I would suggest that you both see a marriage counselor. You both will need this no matter how the conversation goes tomorrow. That is, if you're still together. And finally, it looks like Howard is tired of being in the background. I think he deserves to be an equal partner in your marriage, even though you earn much more than him. I don't think income matters unless he feels disadvantaged by it. Howard is a wonderful person. It should be perceived that way. I listened to Ginny, concentrating on every word she said. She was at a loss for words, and that's exactly what I wanted. There was only one big obstacle. Tell Howard about my deception early in our marriage to avoid pregnancy. This was my biggest fear. I was sure that Howard would react very harshly to any confession I made. I was sure that our marriage would end there. Ginny last night. He never said he loved me. Never. Maybe it's already too late. He spoke as if there could be a future. But a future without love? I don't think I can live with this. It would be better if he got rid of me. I was depressed. At every step I saw disaster. I didn't know how I could save my marriage. Don't give up, Eddie. I think he still loves you, but ask him. This is at the core of everything that happens between you. If he didn't love you, why would he arrange all this? He would just leave. Why would he challenge you if he didn't want to salvage something from this mess? He is also confused now. He is not as confident as he seems. He is waiting for a sign from you that you want to restore your relationship to a level that he can accept and enjoy. You have to give him this chance. I don't understand. I want him to give me a chance. I don't hear anything in his voice that sounds insecure. I found it hard to believe what Ginny was saying. People don't change overnight, Eddie. Howard is not a monster. He's hurt, he's angry, and he's trying to regain his dignity and control over something that has shocked him to his core. He pretends he doesn't care, but I think he's not as confident as he seems. He's trying to get you to admit your mistake. You woke him up by poking him with a sharp stick. He reacts. He's just as unsure of what's going to happen as you are. You sound pretty confident. I still found it difficult to accept her assumption. I'm not sure. I wasn't with you when all this happened. I try to listen to everything you tell me and make sense of it. Remember, I only met Howard once, and only briefly. He barely knows I exist, does he? I don't know. Don't think. Don't know. Right now, Ginny, I'm not sure of anything. I was on the verge of tears again. We interrupted our conversation to order lunch. Ginny doesn't drink, and I was happy with just iced tea. I needed a break from the intensity of our conversation. Everything was getting too confusing. I needed to simplify everything so I could deal with it tomorrow. I have to get back to basics. What do I want, and what does Howard want? Keep it simple. The only real fear was telling him that I didn't want to have children. He said I was selfish. He is right. I've been selfish for a long time. That's not a very good basis for marriage, is it? I think I talked to myself as much as I did to Ginny. I looked at my salad and realized that I was just picking at it. I had almost no appetite. It suited my mood perfectly. Cheer up, Eddie. I know it's hard, and I know you're beating yourself up for what you did. But what's done is done. Now it's time to decide what's important. What do you want to achieve tomorrow? You have one very good chance to save your marriage. Many women never get this chance. You will have a captive audience. The stage is yours. Now it all depends on the presentation. When you know what you want to say, when you know how you want to answer his questions, when you know what you want to do to make things work between the two of you, then you just do it. I sighed and leaned back in my chair. Ginny was right. Everything depended on preparation. I could do it with famous people and not think twice about it. I had to use the same training with Howard. It's all about finding the courage to do it and do it right. I started to feel a little better. I looked at Ginny and nodded. She was right. Howard, I didn't do much at work. Friday is rarely a busy day, but this Friday was a particularly quiet one. It gave me time to think about Eddie and tonight. When I woke up this morning, my mind was set. I knew what I would do. Now too much time for second thoughts. Was I too cruel to her? Was I pushing her beyond her ability to handle it? She looked scared at times. It was as if she thought I was going to snap and do something violent. Perhaps my performance was too dramatic. What did I want from all this? What did I hope to achieve? I kept asking myself this question over and over again. I still loved her. Now I know it. I knew this because I couldn't get her out of my head. If I didn't love her, I wouldn't be obsessed with her. I wouldn't be angry. I wouldn't be uncertain about our future. I knew what the problem was. Her secret. The one she was afraid to tell me. Refusal of children. I still haven't come to terms with how I feel about it. Was I angry? Yes. Can I forgive her? I don't know. Will she be able to bring herself to tell me this? I do not know either. Will this be the deciding factor in whether we stay together or not? One more thing I don't know. One moment I was confident, and the next I was full of doubts. 30 years, counting our dates. We spent almost 2/3 of our lives together. So much has been invested in us. I tried to imagine my life without her. I couldn't imagine it. Of course, it would be lonely. When you've been with someone for so long, you don't have long conversations about your life together. All this is imprinted on your psyche, your being. Words are not always necessary. Sometimes a touch, a smile, or just a gesture is enough. The comfort of lying in bed next to you, even when you are not touching. The smell, the warmth, all these intangible things. 30 years. I didn't know what to expect tonight. In a way, I was afraid of it. I promised her that I would let her speak. I will listen to her respectfully and without comment unless she asks. I owed her this. But what then? This part of my plan was unformed. What then? Edith. Howard came early this evening. He was home a little after 5. I didn't know whether to worry or not. I was already a bundle of nerves. This sudden change in habit was another thing that threw me off balance. But I soon noticed that something else was different. You came home early. Yes, it was quiet today, and I was able to leave a little after 4, start of the weekend. He smiled at me when he said this. It was the first smile I'd seen since Monday. Would you like a drink, as usual? He seemed relaxed and almost normal. Yes, thank you. He made me my usual gin and tonic, but didn't pour himself any wine. I'll go get changed. He smiled again, turned and headed upstairs. He returned in less than 5 minutes. He was wearing his new polo shirt, jeans, and loafers. He looked completely different, and he smiled. You look very relaxed, Howard. I wondered if he was trying to tell me something. He poured himself a glass of wine and turned to me. This week has been very stressful for me, for both of us. I want to tone it down a little. I don't want to put any more pressure on you. I was cruel to you, I know. But let's enjoy dinner and then we'll talk. I nodded. Thank you. I'm all on edge. I'm so upset about what happened. I'm so unsure of myself and what I want to say. Just be yourself. Tell me what you want to tell me. Be honest, Eddie. Be honest with me, and most importantly, be honest with yourself. He called me Eddie again. He hasn't called me that all week. Maybe everything will be okay. But here again, a question of honesty. A question that I haven't decided how to answer. I made another one of his favorite dishes, and he admitted it. We talked over dinner, and it helped me cope with my nerves. I didn't expect what would happen next. In fact, I was afraid of it. Talking to Ginny helped, but I still couldn't imagine how this would all end. I didn't take the second drink. I don't think I could have held him. I needed all my thoughts. Alcohol is only false courage. Ginny taught me this. She was an alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. It cost her her marriage and her relationship with her children. It was a very high price. I met her shortly after she joined I admired her courage. She blamed no one but herself and knew it was a disease. She got over it. I had no such excuse for my behavior. I was selfish. It all came down to this. It was always about what I wanted. I was blind to it, just as Ginny was blind to her alcoholism. Howard's harsh words shocked me and forced me to admit my selfish behavior. But I could change. I knew I could change. It wouldn't even be difficult. I just needed to be more considerate of others. I could do it. I will do it. When we finished washing the dishes, we went into the living room and sat where we had sat on Wednesday night. Now it's my turn. Where to begin? I took a deep breath. Howard, first, I want to apologize. I want to apologize for hurting you and being stupid enough to think that you would accept my intentional behavior. I don't know what I was thinking, but it was irrational. Worse, I don't know what caused it. It definitely wasn't you. I never thought for a moment that you were anything less than an excellent lover and a deeply caring person. Perhaps I took it for granted after all these years. Perhaps I was so used to your love and support that I didn't appreciate it as much as I should have. I don't know, but I need to find out. You were wrong about me not having a true friend. I have one. Virginia Martin. Ginny is my closest friend. After you, of course. She is my confidant. Someone I can talk to without fear of it becoming the subject of rumors. Someone who has been through their battles and can be honest with me. I appreciate her advice. I should have listened to them. She told me I was crazy for even thinking about an affair. She said that you are an ideal husband and I should value that above all else. She said that when you find out, I won't be able to control the consequences. She was right, of course. In my own confused mind, I thought that if I told you what I wanted to do, somehow you would understand. I didn't want to do this behind your back. I didn't mean to deceive you. I did not for a moment want to humiliate or belittle you. It just never occurred to me. But I did, didn't I? I humiliated and belittled you. Just saying what I wanted was enough, wasn't it? I looked closely at Howard. I didn't know what reaction to expect, but he remained calm and collected. I continued. I don't know how to tell you how ashamed I am of what I did to you and how sorry I am. I know an apology is not enough. Ginny recommended a psychiatrist who she said could help me. I really need help to understand why I acted the way I did. I will call her next week to see if she will accept me as a patient. You should know that I am ready to do anything to save our marriage. I love you with all my heart and cannot imagine my life without you. I'm begging you to give me another chance. I will agree to anything that will keep us together. All. Ginny suggested family therapy. I'm ready if you're ready. I want us to be together for the rest of our lives. I want this more than anything in the world, even more than my career. I'll leave her tomorrow if that's what you want. Nothing is more important than you in my life. I know I was selfish, but I can change. I can improve. I can reunite with our old friends. I can be more attentive to you. It won't be difficult. I haven't forgotten how to do it. I just need to remind myself to be more considerate of others. I paused again to collect my thoughts. I looked at Howard carefully. He was calm but wary. His eyes told me that he was absorbing everything I said. Howard, I want to tell you, assure you, that I have never cheated on you. Never, and I will never change. I put any thought out of my mind that I could do this to you. I saw the pain I caused you, and I couldn't live with myself if I did that. Another pause. I was hoping to see some kind of reaction on Howard's face, but he was again calm and unperturbed. I wonder if he believes me. I know I didn't treat you very well. I mean, I didn't treat you like my partner and the most important person in my life. I think this is part of the selfishness that I succumbed to. I promise I will change. You are too important to me not to admit it to our friends and acquaintances. Again, I can only apologize for my actions. I am ashamed of what I did, humiliating you and belittling your importance to me. You asked me to be honest. Honest with you and with myself. I tried to do this today. You really shocked me with your words that night. I still haven't recovered from them. I was so scared and upset. I had to work hard to understand all the things I did to you. Not just my stupid idea to cheat on you. Other things. It was painful to realize that you were right. These were the things I didn't want to know about myself. Admit to myself. I tried really hard to be honest with you. I don't know what else to say. I didn't lie to you today. I have never cheated, and I don't intend to. I acknowledge my shortcomings as a wife and partner. These are things I can change. I know these are things I have to change. If there is nothing else to say, I will just say that I love you. I love you with all my heart. I love you as much as I have from the day we met. This has not changed, and I think it will never change. Most of all, I need to know that you still love me. I just don't know what else to say. I'm done. I said everything I could think of. I answered his questions, his demands. There could be no doubt that I was sincere. Once again, I was exhausted. I kept my emotions bottled up and let them out in the last few minutes. There were no tears. I'm not a crybaby, I knew, but there were no tears. Now we just have to wait for Howard's decision. I sat back and looked at the quiet, collected man who was my husband. His face was in his hands, but when he removed them, I saw tears. Tears, he cried. Not sobbing, but tears flowed down his cheeks as he looked at me with the saddest look I've ever seen on him. Sorry, Eddie. I believe you. I believe that you were faithful. I believe that you want to change. I believe that you love me. I believe that you are ashamed of what you did to us. I believe in all of this, but I don't believe you were honest. I gasped. What did he mean? I saw how he reacted to my shock. There is something you have been hiding from me for a long time. Something that hurt me more than I ever thought I could be hurt. Something you couldn't bring yourself to tell me, no matter how much you wanted to. Do you know what this is, Eddie? I nodded. He knew. How? I don't know, and it doesn't matter. He knew, and he won't forgive me for it. I realized that it was all over. My fate was sealed. I collapsed back into the chair. You deprived me of my family, our children, even our grandchildren. You knew how important this was to me. You knew this was what we both wanted in our lives. Somehow you changed your mind. I was the only one who wanted it. You decided to deprive me of this gift. I could get over it if you were honest and admitted what you did. Even at this late date, I could forgive. But you couldn't bring yourself to tell me that, could you? I will tell my lawyer to prepare the documents on Monday. I'll move my things while you're away next week. I'll take a few things with me and stay at a hotel. I'll let you know which one if there's an emergency. I thought you might be interested to know that I accepted a severance package from TC&W. They made redundancies in difficult times and offered me a very fair early care allowance. In a few months, once I'm settled, I'll probably start my own business. I still have many useful years left. I will be busy. Sorry, Eddie. I really hoped that you could find the courage to tell me your darkest secret. Sorry you couldn't. I wish you all the best. I watched as he stood up, traces of tears still visible on his face as he slowly walked out of the room and up the stairs. I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I wanted to scream for him to stay, to keep me safe, to love me again. Instead, I did nothing. I sat staring at the chair in which he was sitting. It was empty as my life will be. Howard. I was glad that I didn't have to urgently look for a job and rebuild my life. I needed time to recover from a week that had shattered my entire world. I found a very cute, small apartment in Cambridge that was perfect for me. I bought furniture I liked, in colors I liked, and settled in. This will do for now. I took a vacation. I wanted to go somewhere to forget. Somewhere Eddie and I haven't been. No memories. It was May, and I chose the south of France. I rented a car and drove from Monaco to Narbonne, from Marseille to Orange. I soaked up the environment and the people and the wonderful cuisine. I was happy for a while. I sat in a seaside cafe in St. Maxime, wondering if I could live here. I don't need much. I can take care of myself. My business could operate remotely via the internet if necessary. Perhaps, living here among the French, I can forget. Maybe. For now, I'll go back to Boston and think about it some more. I'm still getting used to being alone. Edith. Ginny took me away from the chaos of my broken marriage. I was a mess. I couldn't work. I couldn't think. I just sat in our house and pretended that I was alive. She took me to Seattle and on a cruise to Alaska. It was the isolation and escape I needed. Thank God for Ginny. She has been my anchor these past weeks. My business seems to run on its own. I have very good assistants. I'm sure my absence was noticed at various social events, but with my divorce, I think they will understand. Neither Ginny nor I have to work anymore. We both have enough saved up to last us the rest of our lives. I have never spent recklessly. I fought with Howard's lawyer to get him to accept a larger settlement from me. He deserved at least this, but he wanted so little. I don't think I will have another man in my life. I just can't bring myself to replace it. If it ever does, I'll know not to do the same things to him that I did to Howard. Either way, I'll be lonely. I'll have Ginny and all my friends in the business, but I won't have Howard. There won't be another Howard. There was only one. End. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.